What's going on with Deshaun Watson? What is happening with him, with the Texans, and then other teams, or the commissioner's office, or what is happening with him?
He's practicing in individuals and then going inside. And then he's not thrilled with reporters for videoing the same thing every day. That's basically the synopsis here. The league office has been very, very, very clear. They're looking into it. They are investigating. They're going to let the police and whatever other investigation take its course, but they are looking into it. They have, as Sports Illustrated said, they have interviewed a couple of the accusers. The commissioner's exempt list is basically for, as it states, someone who they have evidence of committed a violent crime. That is what the rules are. That is what now they could always go back and say, we're going to change it a little bit. I mean, they have been known to tinker from time to time, but that is what it's for. Deshaun Watson does not fit that criteria. So as of now, he's eligible to play. He does not have the Texans in his plans of playing. They do not seem to be preparing him to play this season. So unless something changes, there are really only two options. He gets put on ice for the entire season, pays $10 million to do nothing, or because he said he's not going to play for them, or at some point over the next couple weeks they trade him. I haven't sensed any huge momentum to a trade, but if a trade like this happens, it's going to be very fast and probably very secret, so I wouldn't rule anything out.
So then, in terms of that speculation, obviously all eyes on Philadelphia, and there's a couple of moving parts on that and variables, one of them being Jalen Hurts and how he performs. What are you hearing about his first performance of the preseason and what Nick Sirianni and the rest of the front office with Howie Roseman thinking about that scenario right now?
Sounded like it was pretty good. He didn't have Devontae Smith, but it looked pretty good, and it sounded like the reviews were pretty good. The interesting thing about him is you don't quite know what he is, right? We saw him in college. We saw him a couple different colleges. We've seen Jalen Hurts out on the field last year at the end and definitely had some moments. Certainly helped bring me to a fantasy title, which I don't think should go into their evaluations, but from, deep in my heart, it's something I'll always appreciate. My first fantasy title, you never forget that.
It's still a metric, Ian. It's still a metric. Maybe not to front offices, but to you it is, and I respect it. I respect it.
That was certainly a great moment in my household. Anyway, but I don't know what he is. To me, he kind of reminds me of young Dak Prescott, where there's plenty of people who judge that he's not a franchise guy because he doesn't look and play like what people, generally older people, think is a franchise guy. But people need to look again. And obviously for Dak, it worked out and will continue to work out. I could see Jalen going in a similar direction. He's got some of the same attributes where he creates his own opportunities because of the way he moves and looks to throw. That is really valuable. Anyway, it sounded like the returns early on were pretty good.
Well, and the other variable in this is something that won't be finalized before the season begins, and that's how many first-round draft choices Philadelphia has next year. And part of that is how many games Carson Wentz winds up playing. He and Quentin Nelson having the dreaded 5 to 12 week injury. What are you hearing about that? Because I'm hearing or reading quite a bit that it could be on that 5 week end of things, and that Wentz and Nelson both have an opportunity to be seen in week 1. What are you hearing on that front?
Yeah, I don't think anyone's ruled out week 1, and the fact that they were at practice without a walking boot is, the first couple of days is good. It's all good. It sounded like the surgeries went well. Basically for Carson Wentz, they essentially extracted a bone from his foot that had, I guess, come loose, which, if you're squeamish, not a great thing to think about.
Nope.
I would not want anyone to extract any of my bones. But that's what it was. And it sounds like rehab, rest is going great. We don't know if he's going to be ready week 1. And it was extremely important what Jim Irsay said on I think he said it on the TV broadcast this weekend, which is that we are not going to put Carson Wentz out there if he's not healthy. Wentz wants to play. I think he was out there too early with the Eagles. He played through some stuff that ended up being detrimental to him. Remember, he was out there week 3 and probably didn't look like himself. He always wants to play. It's a 17-game season. You might have heard a little bigger than usual. It is important that the Colts protect him from himself. So if he's not out there week 1, it'll be soon. But I do think you're looking at the early end, not the 12-week end.
Okay, and then obviously when you're talking about a bone being removed from a foot, I mean, yikes. What is so is the plan to just go with Eason and Ellinger and hope for the best, just in case it goes longer, or best you could tell, has there been a phone call made to a high school coach in Alabama and Phillip Rivers to see what he's doing, or Foles is obviously the lost man in Chicago? Like, what is those moving parts on that front?
Well, Rivers has a season to coach, so I think he was pretty clear that high school football is the most important thing, which is hilarious. But then again, it's Alabama high school football; they take it extremely serious.
Right.
And he's had this job in his mind and hearts for like 10 years, so I imagine he's not joking about
in
that.
all seriousness, too, Ian, I mean, he probably has, when you're a coach, you give a commitment to a team, and to look a high school kid in the face and say, yeah, I got to go take this job in Indianapolis, but I'll be back. That's probably why he was also saying, if the phone rings in November or December when he's done with the season, he might consider it, But
nobody would blame him.
No.
But he's got a team to coach. That's
correct.
important.
So, but still though, the Colts could still make the call. I'm just trying to see here. Like, it is quite a safety net that you would be either stitching or without. With Wentz going into the season, with Wentz iffy to come back sometime soon with an injury that, who knows, a complication could occur week 2, week 3. What happens? That's my question.
I mean, I think the main issue, there's 2 issues here. One, the Colts don't want to spend an asset. Let's say it's you're not going to trade for a quarterback who would start for you without giving up some sort of mid-round pick. So is it worth doing that for 1 game or 2 games? I would say probably not. The other thing is, look at the way the Colts are constructed. I mean, they are a draft and develop team. They hate spending in free agency. Ask any agent. Ballard knows. Hate spending in free agency. They don't trade for a ton of guys unless they absolutely have to, like with Jacoby Brissett. They're like their own guys. They like to see what their own guys have. And so for a lot of teams, I would kind of roll my eyes if they're like, yeah, we're not looking at a trade right now. The Colts, I believe it, because that is part of their core. So, if it's not Jacob Eason, could it be Sam Ellinger? Yeah, I mean, it really could be for a game or 2.
A few more minutes left with Ian Rapoport, my colleague from the NFL Media Group here on the Rich Eisen Show. What's the scoop with Tua? All the whispers involving him and his readiness to be a pro and a starter and all of that business. What do you got for me on that front? Because that's the other team that everybody's associated with.
Right.
Deshaun Watson wanderlust. What do you got for me on that right now as it stands?
I think, Tua has steadily come along. His camp I would describe as pretty good. They're getting him to come out of himself a little bit, so push the ball down the field, take some chances. He tried to do that in the end zone, ended up throwing an interception where he really just saw the tight end, I believe it was, a little bit too late. But that's almost okay. They want him to take chances. They want him to push it deep. They want him to kind of do what he did at Alabama, which is let it go, let it loose. So I think his camp has been good. Is he going to develop into the superstar franchise quarterback? Some thought. I don't know. But they definitely think he can be a more than solid franchise starter, which is, for a team that is going to have a really good defense, that's okay. I don't know how high his ceiling is going to be, but, if they go into the season with Tua as their starter and he starts 17 games, I believe that the Dolphins are going to be absolutely fine.
Okay. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.